Hi, my name is Jackie Lee Price and welcome to Shadowboxing.
In terms of, you've got your boxing going on, you've got your officiating going on, but you've also got, I hear, an organisation called, is it Fight for Cancer?
Yeah, fight to end cancer. Yeah.
Fight to end cancer.
Yeah, I think that it's an important step. Just like when I got into refereeing, you can't just keep taking from the sport. You can't keep. I mean, I've gotten to travel the world. I've gotten to work with some of the top boxers. I've become friends with some of the top pro boxers because of my interactions as a referee. I feel like you hear every boxer or everyone who's from boxing say that boxing saved my life. It did. It really did. So you can't keep taking from a sport. You can't keep taking without giving back. And cancer is obviously something that's touched us all. In my case, it was very acutely touching my life at the time I decided to start Fight to End Cancer. But the major portion was to end cancer. That was why I started the organization. But a huge component of it was, how do I share my love, my passion, and the incredible effects the sport has had on me with the world, with the real world of not just boxing and sports, but with the world of people who would never look twice at boxing. I mean, even me, I wasn't allowed to watch boxing as a kid. It wasn't part of my life. It wasn't part of what my parents thought was acceptable for me to be interested in. But now it's become part of my mission to make sure that I educate people what boxing is and what it has to offer. And there's a reason why people say boxing saved their lives. So yeah, so it's become a big thing. Second theme is that I meet people from around the world who've all been affected by cancer and want to join the fight in some capacity. So I'm very lucky that I've got this, and I've created this in 2011. And now anywhere and everywhere I go, I've got people who either, have become ambassadors, they become fighters or they have their own fight, they share their stories. And it's a great platform that I've met and been able to keep in contact with and support across the world.
I mean, you are a formidable woman. In terms of doing all this stuff, when do you get time just to look after you? Because obviously coaching, officiating, you're always giving to everybody. What do you do for yourself?
Well, up until the pandemic, not a whole bunch. Up until now, I didn't really have much time to stop. This life that I live and the spots that I found myself kind of contributing to or being a part of, I couldn't ask for more. I couldn't ask. I mean, some people say, well, what are you getting out of this? What are you really, what's your end goal? Why are you really doing this? I don't know. I could probably ask you the same thing. I saw how busy you've been on your podcast. You're getting so many incredible people you're talking to. You're meeting so many people that every time you speak to, you're probably, growing as a human being. You're growing, intelligence. You're growing your heart. Everything is such an incredible process. Same thing happens for me. And I'm really lucky that some of the things that I'm doing contributes to the sport of boxing and contributes back to me. But I think that in general, I feel like every step of the way so fortunate. And the byproduct is that I have a business. The byproduct is that I have an organization that's kept me very involved and allowed me to meet people. So those are things that are benefiting me. But the majority of what really matters to me is being able to share this incredible sport, share the knowledge, and not just the sport, but, connect people. There's nothing greater, no greater feeling than being able to connect people and connect with people for all over the world with different goals, different dreams, different aspirations. But the one major theme is that, you realize how good the world really is. So it's empowering. It's an empowering feeling, and it's all the payment that I really need. It's all the things that I really need for myself. So typically I don't stop, but the pandemic has allowed me to take a deep breath. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy this time at first. I was really anxious, but now I feel like I can take a deep breath and do things without the anxiety. And that's going to be hopefully a theme that I move forward with in the future.
When you talk about you weren't enjoying it in the first incident and about anxiety, is that the thing that keeps you motivated as well, to just keep going?
Probably. I know from being an athlete. So before boxing, I mentioned I was figure skating, and I was a very little fish in a big pond, and you know, being one of millions, if not billions of women, probably millions at the time of women in a sport, even though I was talented, it didn't matter. I had to keep on working really hard because I was never as pretty as the next girl. I was never as skinny as the next girl. I was never ever enough to be the best. And that was that was how I grew up. That's how, for the first, I think the most important time of my life, from the age 5 through 14, 15 years old, for the first 10 years of my real like existence, that's all I knew. I knew I was never going to be good enough. Even if I was the best at what I was doing, I would never shine as bright as some of the other girls would. And I was at a very high level. So that was the impression I built for myself. That's who I am, and that's who I am to the core. So I think that anxiety is a driving force behind everything that I do. I know that nothing I do will ever be good enough, because it can always be done better, if not by me, but by, you know, my teams that I've built. And it's funny, I just took a position here in Ontario, and some people have been saying to me that, you know, hey, well, you know, you're still so much better than it was before. It's like, I don't gauge myself on what it was before. I gauge myself on how far it can go, and it's limitless. So yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. The anxiety really does drive me.
Where does that come, when you say that I'm not enough, where does that come from? Is that your insecurity, or was that something that was fed to you as a child? Or
I think it's probably a combination. Yeah, it's probably, it was definitely fed to me as a child, all the way until, you know, when you're a teenager, you really are building a self-worth of yourself. Like, you really are building your conscious, you know, I guess, idea of who you are and what you want to be. And at 14, 15 years old, nothing I could ever do seemed like enough. And it was being told to me by my coaches. My parents were putting a lot of pressure on me because they really, really were investing like all of their money into me as an athlete. And it was expensive. So the expectation, and I think that's just it, managing expectations was never done for me at a young age. So it's what I grew up with. Now people can tell me, and I can tell people, listen, you don't need to be anxious about this. The work is going to get done. You're going to do the work. So why beat yourself up about it as you're doing it? Why allow yourself to add that added unnecessary negativity as you move forward? Athletes do this themselves all the time. I see them beating themselves up before they even get in the ring. From the novice athlete who's just stepping in the ring for the first time to the Olympic athlete who's done this, you know, thousands of times before, they beat themselves up. So it's probably an outside thing that has been done for a lot of athletes. And I have seen some very strong ones, and I'm sure you've spoken to a few very strong athletes. They really know how to keep their head about them. But that's psychology, man. When you're growing up and that's what you've been built as, that's what has been ingrained in you, and that's what drives you. I don't know. It could be the insecurities now that have just been ingrained in me. But I think I lost you there.
On a positive level, you have turned that into something that really works for you. And I'm really guessing that this is something that you can really instill into your athletes. You know, the point about, you know, you don't need to be anxious. You know, people go through that, but you can achieve all of that stuff. So I'm guessing from the negative comes a positive. And
yeah,
on that
100%.
And on that note, I wanted to ask you, what do you think makes a good coach?
I think a good coach can also be a lucky coach. So you see some good coaches out there who stumble across some of the top athletes who are just and I'm lucky as well. I have a couple of really great boxers I work with, great athletes. So a lucky coach will stumble across a very good boxer or a very good athlete. What they do with that is what's going to make or break that athlete. And I think I've run into some very bad coaches as an athlete, and I've seen some very bad coaches along the way in the industry of boxing. But what makes a good coach is a coach who can support and develop the skills that already exist and recognize that those are skills that exist in the boxer. They're not skills. There's tools that I can give my athlete, but if that coach can recognize that that athlete is actually the one who possesses those tools, possesses the ability, And it's not the coach. It's not about the coach. It's not about what I'm telling you to do. It's about allowing that athlete to access what's already in them. So a great coach matched up with a great athlete will create a world champion, will create an Olympic champion. But a great athlete matched up with a bad coach, it will destroy, and I've seen it happen before, it'll destroy any chance that that athlete will succeed. It'll create doubt in their mind the same way that it happened with me as an athlete. Alternatively, you can have a average athlete matched up with a great coach who, you know, is able to inspire and access the things necessary in an athlete to be able to accomplish great things. And I've seen that. That's why I always say talent beats hard work when talent doesn't work hard. So,
100%.
so that's, I think a great coach has to recognize that that is all that they really are, is they're a great coach, but the athlete is what's going to make the success. And the athlete, you have to help that athlete create their own success.
Yeah. I hope there's a few coaches watching this. That just makes me smile. It was nice to hear it come from somebody else. And in the same breath, what do you think, having gone through your experience as an international official, what makes a great official?
I think the same thing. You can learn how to be a good official. I think that there are some officials that really stand out, and probably the reason why I progressed as fast as I did was I recognized, I guess I was able to move, I was able to do certain things and not think twice, and that's a big part of it. You can't have hesitation. As an athlete, you shouldn't have hesitation, but as an official, if you hesitate on the decision you're going to make, the call you're going to make as a referee, on any aspect of what you're doing and when you're doing it, in the time that it matters, in the moment that it matters, you're not a good official. So being a good official really is layered. And I think that the only way that you can be a good official is to recognize that you need the sport more than the sport needs you. There's going to be a lot of great officials, hopefully. And if people who want to become officials recognize that, I think one major theme I hear a lot of officials say is, oh, well, I'm just a volunteer. I'm just a volunteer. And this is officials across every sport. I'm just a volunteer, treat me with respect, blah, 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 all these things that are true. Yeah, definitely treat everyone with respect. But to say you're just a volunteer, what does that make the athletes? Especially in amateur sport, the athletes are volunteering their lives. They're volunteering every day of their life, the way they eat, the way they sleep, the way they socialize, the friends they choose to keep, the friends they choose not to have because they don't have time. Those are the real volunteers. So the moment, just like a coach, the moment the official sees themselves as the important factor in the equation, they're missing the point, and they get distracted with just being completely self-centered. And you cannot be this, like, even though you are kind of the center of the action when you're the referee because you're controlling that action, you're not the center of the world when it comes to the sport that you're a part of. You're a key in the cog. Yes, you're needed, but without the athlete, you don't have a sport.
Absolutely. I think there are some coaches like that as well, actually. To be honest with you, I've come across a few.
Yeah, I think that's a problem that we forget. I mean, the athletes are allowed. You know what? Let the athletes. It's like a rock star. Let the stars feel like the stars, but you have to have good management around them. You've got to make sure that you're helping guide and you're a positive influence. Otherwise, just like everyone, just like the rock star out there would go off the hinges, the athletes, same thing. So, but the athletes are allowed. Let them be as important and self-important as they need to be, because they're there creating a sport for us to be a part of.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about the sort of rock star scenario, I think the officials, the coaches, etc., are really the backing singers and need to sort of kind of almost know that that's their spot.
Very true.
But in terms of, I understand that obviously you got into boxing because you got injured, and then obviously you fell in love with the sport, etc. But I'm quite intrigued as to why you didn't officiate in the figure skating side of things.
I actually got into the coaching of boxing because I originally was going to start coaching figure skating. So figure skating is actually a 10 times worse political, 10 times worse with corruption than any boxing that you've ever any corruption you've ever heard in boxing, the corruption is 10 times worse in figure skating. It's the only sport, I think, you're gonna have to fact check this for me, but it's the only sport, figure skating, that at the Olympics, I forget which Olympics it was, that they reversed a decision and gave out 2 gold medals because of the corruption happening at the highest level, and Canadians were involved. So
wow.
So when I got into coaching as a figure skating coach, I was already coaching. I was in the course. I was already boxing. I was already, to box, you had to coach a little bit as well, because you couldn't ask for your coaches to teach you without contributing back to maybe the younger kids. So I was already coaching a little bit, but not legitly. And then, but figure skating, I was in Canada, we have to take a theory course that all coaches take. So when I did that theory course, I was like, wow, you know what? The rule book for figure skating was like probably about that thick. Every single thing was in there. It's a much more organized sport than boxing, maybe. So I was like looking at the difference between, okay, here was my manual for figure skating and the boxing manual. When I ran into one, I forget which boxing coach I ran into at this theory course. I was like pretty young. The manual was like, it was like 3 pages. I was like, well, okay, well, this seems a lot easier to get into than that. So I kind of fell into the becoming a coach, and it really was quite easy. It's still quite easy to become a coach in boxing. So it's a more accessible sport. It was more accessible because of that. I found my way into the coaching aspect of it. I loved coaching, and I loved coaching, even figure skating. I think I just loved the coaching aspect of it and seeing the success of, I felt like that's what I feel like. I feel like when I see someone have success that I'm working with, I'm like, oh my gosh, I get as excited as I used to get when it was my success. And I think that's another aspect of a coach. You need to feel, and you need to really, you have to feel that success as if it's yours. And if you don't genuinely have that, then you're not going to be a good coach. So I already had that for skating, and then I ended up falling into boxing, and I just haven't been able to turn back. I hate skating.
What's great about that, you mentioned earlier on that people ask you, what do you get out of it? What's your ulterior motive? That's what you get out of it. That feeling, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. You know what? It really is. Every time, even now, even watching an athlete who's gone pro, I've seen a couple of, like, I'm guessing Joshua Boazzi. So
yeah.
Joshua is one that so he's a great kid. One of my favorite, and I can say it now because he's not amateur anymore, but he's one of my favorite human beings. Yeah, he's one of my favorite human beings in and outside of the ring. And to watch him and the success he's having now, to be a part, I feel like I'm a part of it. I'm like, I'll message him. I'll be like, dude, that's amazing. You're doing so well. And I'm so impressed. And I genuinely feel like his success is my success, not because I take credit for it, not because, I think in some weird, twisted way that he's there because of me, but because I'm so genuinely proud of him, and I'm so genuinely proud that I had something to do with one piece of the puzzle as he got up to where he is now. It's like his success really is. I get really excited, and to the point of like I'm like on another level. I'm buzzing with excitement.
This is the thing that people don't understand. I have a lot of friends that are not involved in boxing. They don't get it. They don't get this. And I think it's a shame they don't get this feeling. I've got goosebumps at the moment, actually. The feelings that we get from being surrounded by success, but also failure, what we learn from it, what we can take away from all those experiences. One of the things I was going to ask you, actually, was how difficult is it, though? Because you get followed by quite a lot of amateur boxers. How difficult is it to sort of distance yourself from the athlete that goes out and fights to the person that's on social media, if that makes sense? Are you able to do that, or do you choose to maybe not referee their competitions if you become too close? How does that all work?
So actually, it's interesting. It's the first time I've ever been asked that. As an official, you have to be neutral. As a boxing official, you see red, you see blue. In WSB, when I was doing the semi-pro stuff, it was, whatever color trunks versus whatever color trunks. I can tell you one thing. I don't watch a lot of, now I'll watch the big fights. And I typically, when I'm watching boxing for the purpose of learning, so if I'm following the world championships, the names, I don't know if it was on purpose. I'm now thinking about it. It's probably on purpose. I couldn't tell you the names of the current champions. I couldn't tell you the names of, you know, even in Canada, actually, I caught myself, I did the Olympic qualifiers here in Canada, and people were like, oh man, did you see how XOX, whatever, just competed? And like, you know, they were so incredible, and you got to judge that. And I was like, who? Like, I actually, when I'm there, it's even easier as an international. So when you're in the international bouts, you don't know the boxers you're going to be refereeing or judging until the moment you're in there.
Yeah.
And even at that, I'm not even listening to the names being announced. It's not, I didn't realize it at first, but I think it's really on purpose. Somebody did ask me recently who my favorite, you know, amateur boxer was, who's coming up on the scene, and I really couldn't answer it. And it was the most genuine ignorance, I guess, I had within the sport. And the reason behind that is to be a good official. I'm very accessible, but I just don't know who people are. And I maybe on purpose made the attempt to do that, or just decided to make that decision. And it's done me well. And it's done me well as an official, and it's done the sport well, because that is the right, I think personally, when I teach the courses I teach now, that's the right answer. If you're an official and you know who's up and coming, you know that you're becoming biased. You actually have a thought process on who's coming up and who matters, you know, in your realm of what your neutrality is supposed to be. Therefore, you failed as a neutral official. So yeah, I only am surprised you're the first ones to ask me that, but I've only really paid attention to the big names, big fights, pro fights usually. And especially now, I'll do my research when someone says, hey, did you see, I remember when Lomachenko came out big on the scene. I remember his first pro fight as an undercard there. I think it was Mayweather and Pacquiao undercard. And I was like, man, I've seen that kid before. I didn't know who he was, but I've seen that kid before. And I finally had to look up at some of the fights that I've done and some of the competitions I've been a part of. And I was like, oh, I've judged that guy before.
Yeah. The reason why I asked, I guess because you're not only an official, you are a coach. And obviously during coaching duties, I've come across a lot of boxers. And then you then have to go on the flip side and become an official. And, you know, if anything, I kind of go the other way, think, right, I can't be influenced. I cannot be influenced. So sometimes I find that quite tough, to the point where I think maybe I should sit out, so I get all myself quite worked up. So I was just interested to see how you kind of contain that.
It's not for everybody. Being able to not be biased, I think that probably the reason why I've become the person I am is because of how unbiased I'm able to be. I don't think that everyone can be like that, and I respect the people who can't. I've got friends, not official friends, but I've got friends who are in different industries, different, completely different lines of work, who have real strong opinions and are maybe completely right in their realm. And I have a lot of respect for them, because they can choose a side. They can walk into a room and say, you know what, I know, and they can debate it right to the end. I'm so open-minded. I'm like, it probably is a bit of a downfall, but I'm so open-minded. However, I can't coach at the national, and I opt not to coach the provincial level, even though I've worked with international, national, you know, local level boxers. I coach at the more grassroots level because I love it. And I've taken a step back from showing my face as a coach at competitions, not because I'm not allowed, but because I do think that you can't yell and scream at a fighter one day and say, you know, to your boxer, you know, knock him out, whatever. And then the next day officiate that boxer and have them perceive you. It's more about perception. Have them perceive you as non-biased. Because if I'm judging them the next day, or judging them even the day before, and then now I'm against them, what happens if I have to disqualify the same fighter? What happens if I have to disqualify that boxer? Now the question remains, did I disqualify the boxer because it was a good disqualification, or did I disqualify him because I was worried about my boxer facing that boxer tomorrow? So knowing that that's such a perceived conflict is just as bad as actual conflict.
What has been, you know, the most amazing memory with regard to boxing today?
For me?
Yeah.
Funniest memory was I guess I wasn't paying too well of attention when I first did my officiating course. I was new to officiating. I came in, I was young, and I was there because I actually wanted to become more intelligent and my IQ for boxing get better. It wasn't because I wanted to be a referee or judge. It was just I wanted to understand the sport better. So part of that was I had to complete a couple of competitions to get my certification. I really enjoy collecting certifications too. So I walked into my first competition and I only had, like, you have to wear dress pants as a referee and as a judge. And I was only coming to judge because when you first become an official, you can only judge. So I was like, I only had access to dress pants, and my dress pants were all set up. I don't know how yours are, but they're all set up for high heels because they're all long. I didn't have them hemmed, and I looked the part. Everything looked the part, but I walked in. I only had these like 6-inch high heels with like a platform. Yeah, because these pants were so long. So I remember walking into my first competition. The one thing you don't want to do as an official is stand out. You want to be heard and not seen. You want to be not remembered. And I don't think I have lived that one down yet. I mean, I still think that people tell me I got nice pants on, but it's because I obviously didn't pay attention during the course where they said you had to wear running shoes or something flat.
Yeah. I bet I think, she is coming in all dressed up.
Yeah. But great memories wise, it's hard to put a label to them. I think the best memories I've got are when a boxer in the finals of the world championships, for example, especially some of the female world championships that I've been a part of, seeing them realize they've qualified and worked their butts off and earned their way and qualified for either for the Olympics. I think that was probably, those were times. I'm a very reflex crier. Like I'm very empathetic. So when I see the boxer just breaking down in happiness, I'm like, everything I can to just not start bawling my eyes out too, because that maybe wouldn't look so good. Breathe and just hold it and then like go find a wash or something. But it's such, again, it comes back down to that empathetic. I feel like your success is my success, and I had nothing to do with it in that context. Maybe I made a good decision. It was a split decision. Maybe I was on the wrong side or right side, whatever it was. But to see the pure joy and that how much that means to that boxer, that they're gonna go to the next level, or they've earned what they've worked hard for their entire life for. That's nothing compares to that feeling.
If you could, write down a list of where you want to be in terms of officiating, where you want to be in the next sort of year and a half, what would that look like?
I think something that I've learned only recently, again, everything seems to be by accident, but I learned recently, I really enjoy instructing. I really enjoy taking these experiences and turning them into something constructive that will help the sport grow, it'll help people grow, it'll help the officials, and it'll help the athletes, but it essentially will help the sport itself. In a few years, maybe sooner than later, I'd like to start working on helping the exterior factors towards people's success, like the athlete's success, help them and the organization start seeing where we really fall into that place. And I don't know how that's going to look or what opportunities will come my way, but that's definitely kind of the next step. And that's new for me to see myself kind of taking it outside of the direct impact I'm having.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. The last question. I want you to finish this statement. Because of COVID-19, I am grateful for.
I'm
grateful for. Because of COVID-19, I'm grateful for.
My life, our lives, my family's lives. I think that we all feel very fragile at this moment. We all do in every single way. It's just, we feel humbled, fragile, for lack of a better word. I'm grateful that I have the things that really matter. And that's, I have my health, I have my family's health, I have, the ability to continue contributing. And I went from feeling like I thought I was essential to being directly told by the government that I'm not essential, my business is not essential. So essentially it's halted everything. But I'm so grateful for the fact that I'm still here, I'm still alive, and I can still contribute.
Beautiful. I mean, you have an action-packed life, and maybe you just needed to take a step back, take a deep breath, just look at all your achievements, and then go again.
It's given me the opportunity to talk to people and talk about, actually, I think that was probably it. Just talk about some of the things that, I'm doing and aspire to do. And it's made me realize that I'm not doing too badly. I am pretty hard on myself, but I've always said, I can always do better. So I never stopped to look and see what was happening. So I do feel pretty grateful for the things that I've achieved as well, or I've been allowed and able to achieve. So, and I'm really grateful for the fact that I meet people like you. You're on the other side of the world. And look, my very first live Instagram interaction. So thank you for that.
What I'm really pleased about, and I'm really grateful you came on to the show. And obviously, we have different 5 hours. We're 5 hours ahead or something like that. But what is amazing, I've seen your career progress, and what is great is that you're showing these young ladies and men, but you know, particularly the young ladies, that it is possible. You know, it is possible to break through. And follow their dreams and get to the top flights as officials, or whether it's officials, boxers, etc. So you are inspiring a lot of, let's just say, people in the boxing industry. I'm not leaving anybody out there now, am I? But yeah, it is really fantastic to watch you grow. It's fantastic to watch you give back as well. So yeah, I'm just going to keep watching your career, but thanks ever so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for giving everyone this. I mean, you've had some incredible people. I'm still trying to catch up with some of the things you've been doing just throughout the pandemic. But thank you for doing this, and thank you for opening people's worlds up to the boxing world, because I know there's going to be a lot of people who are watching this that are not from boxing. So, you know, if you're not in boxing yet, you're helping them see what it really is. So thank you so much for that.
If you like this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber of Shadowbox UK, we'd love to see you, so please go ahead and subscribe now.